One of the earliest warning signs in struggling businesses is not always financial. Sometimes it's silence. Communication slows down, visibility disappears, leadership retreats, and clients and partners hear less and less. The market starts filling in the blanks itself, and in volatile times, disappearing from view can quietly damage trust long before the numbers fully reflect it. Today, we're talking about marketing, visibility, and narrative control during uncertainty, and why businesses that go quiet during instability often create bigger problems for themselves later. Leadership today isn't just about scaling. It's about navigating constant uncertainty, market disruptions, and high-pressure decisions. If you're dealing with chaos, bottlenecks, and relentless pressure, welcome to the Business Emergency Room.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here today. I am talking to Adrienne Wilkerson today. And Adrienne is the co-founder and CEO of Beacon Media and Marketing. It's an Inc. 5000 recognized business, and she has many personal and business accolades to her name. Adrienne is an Alaskan native, or born and raised in Alaska, and currently resides in Nevada. So in my head, she automatically has innate resilience from growing up there. Yes. She is also the author of Digital Marketing for Mental Health and does a lot around marketing in the mental health space. And she works in the space of branding, growth, company culture, anything around marketing and culture and branding. And I'm very glad you're here, Adrienne. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
Yes. If we start talking about business emergencies and marketing, I get some eye rolls. I also get some honest questions around the fit, right? And we've talked about this between us before. It's very typical to think that marketing is kind of the polishing, right? The cream on the cake, the add-on. Right. And so if we talk about being in turmoil, being in messy business, things not going as planned, and needing to focus on the core of your business, marketing is not necessarily the first thing people think of. So can you talk us through why we shouldn't?
Why marketing?
Yeah. No, can you myth bust that one a bit for us?
Yes. You know, Mark, it's amazing when you're building your business. There's so many intricacies there between, if you're doing service business or product business and inventory and people and services. And yes, marketing is often an afterthought. It's like, I'll get all of this stuff all together, or I'll fix all of this stuff and then I'll think about marketing. And I understand that mindset as a business owner myself. I've built several businesses. And marketing's often, again, the last thing that's thought of. And what that unfortunately does for businesses is by the time they're ready to open their doors, or they've gotten their emergency dealt with and they're ready to get back to business, what's happened is their business has died down. Marketing needs to be looked at as a long game, and you have to invest and then you get a return. Just like everything in business, you have to invest and then you get a return. Marketing's no different. And so when marketing gets touched as an afterthought, or is the first thing that gets cut during an emergency, what you're doing is, it may make sense in the moment, but you're really hurting yourself long term. Because you got to it's like a flywheel. It needs some time to start getting momentum. And so if that's not coinciding with the rest of the business development or the fixing that business emergency that's going on, what happens? You get on the other side of that emergency, or you get on the other side of that startup building that thing, and now you got everything ready to go and no clients. And then you have this long gap, and not everybody has enough, financial runway to make it through that gap before the clients start coming in. So this is something we see fairly often. And it's unfortunately something that really does hurt a lot of businesses that are either coming out of an emergency or getting started for the first time. So if you're in an emergency, you're dealing with it, you're like, where do I cut? Where am I, hunkering down to try to solve this problem? It makes sense sometimes to maybe cut back on some of your marketing in a strategic way, but you never want to cut it completely. Because again, you want to keep some momentum going so that when you're on the other side of it, you're not having to start over from scratch. Because sometimes marketing can take 6 months to 12 months to really start seeing that full return on your investment. And that's a lot of runway, especially if you're coming right out of a business emergency.
Yeah, and you need to make up for all the losses, right? Yeah, and I think it's something that if we think about it from our own perspective, right, there is something about that consistency, right? Because even if I don't truly consume or consciously consume everything that I see of you, if you reduce it by 20-30%, I might not notice it much. But if it's gone for a couple of months and then it comes back, that's very strange. Or if all I'm hearing is some news flashes about something that might be happening in your business and anything that I used to see from you before is not there.
People assume the worst.
That creates a very different story. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you look in, so a big part of what I see in diagnosing what's going on in businesses, right, is that there's functions or there is scope that is either basically under-resourced. So it's under-resourced in terms of there is not enough people put onto it or not the right capability, right? So and I know that challenges in, for instance, the marketing and branding space are seldom in isolation, right? If I diagnose something, it's also seldom in isolation. It's a compounded problem. But can you talk us through what would be some of the symptoms or the things that if I see those, I should start asking some questions about how I structured my branding and marketing efforts and whether I'm either spending enough on it, time and people wise, or actually have it structured well? What might be some symptoms I'm probably not giving it the attention it deserves?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like you said, it's never in isolation. So unfortunately, that means there's usually never a clean, straightforward answer. There's usually some research, some digging, uncovering that needs to happen. But some of the symptoms that might indicate that your marketing is off, your marketing mix is off. One of them is really high turnover in your clientele or even your employees. So if you're bringing in a lot of clients, but you're having a lot of churn in those clients, one of the possible things could be that your marketing is not attracting the right ideal client. And so they come in and you're great. It's a new sale. Let's get them in and either deliver the product or provide the service. But typically, especially if it's an ongoing client relationship, if those aren't lasting, then it could be that you're not bringing in the right client. And so one of the things, obviously, you need to look at, do I have the right service mix? Do I have the right people doing? And so, as I said, there's always components of it, but very rarely do people look at their marketing and look at, is my marketing communicating my brand well? And are we bringing in the right clients? Because if you're not bringing in the right clients, you're wasting a lot of marketing investment because it costs more to bring a client in and to offboard them than it does to be able to keep and maintain them. So that can be a really good indicator that something may be wrong with your marketing. One of the challenges that we're seeing right now is that AI is really shifting user experience and how our clients' behavior interacts. And so typically one of the things that I used to say to keep an eye on is if your organic website traffic is tanking. And that means traffic that's not coming from paid ads, but people that are searching for you, finding you, coming to your website, coming to your blogs, that kind of thing. Nowadays with AI and the way that user Journeys are shifting and changing. Everybody's traffic is tanking. So about 80 to 90% of websites are reporting massive organic losses in organic traffic, massive losses. So, and paid ads is really suffering as well because less people are going to Google or to Bing to search for something. They're going to AI first, which doesn't have ads yet. That's coming, guys, but it's not here yet. So we'll have to enjoy it while we can. But so people are going to AI. They're searching first. So they're not seeing the paid ads. They're not seeing your articles that are on your website as much. They're not searching through the first page of Google. It almost doesn't matter if you're on the first page of Google anymore. It's crazy because AI doesn't stop at the first page of Google. That AI doesn't have information fatigue like we used to have. So, or we do still have, but AI is replacing that now. So your website traffic going down is probably not a result of your marketing being off. It's more of a response to the way that the user is changing how they're using the internet. So there are pivots that you can make in the SEO world.
But can we also talk about the capability and behind that? Because with all those tools, so marketing also feels like one of these things, or sounds like one of the things where everybody thinks they can do it. I think we talk plenty about that on this podcast, that yes, you maybe can do some of it, but doesn't mean you'll do it well, or it's right use of your time, right? If you're in the leadership team, to be spending your time there. But equally, the diversification is such that is it still really realistic that you have your one marketing person or even your one marketing partner, or does that, with the way the technology is evolving, does that messaging and that branding and that marketing game now sit in many and more different places?
Yeah. It's that the answer to that question is evolving day by day, I think, these days. But marketing has become incredibly specialized. And even AI, which a lot of people thought was going to kind of make it more generalized. But the problem is that the quality of what you get out of AI is only as good as what you put in it. And so it kind of builds on what you were saying, that you can technically prompt AI and get a bunch of social media posts, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the right ones, that they're going to connect correctly with your target market, because it's not your specialty. We work with a lot of dentists as well, and I always tease them. I'm like, you don't want me drilling on your teeth. Trust me. And I don't want you marketing. I want you doing what your specialty is. I want you drilling on my teeth. Why don't you let me do the marketing, kind of a thing? And we both have those specialties. And so what's happened in marketing is it has become very, very specialized. And so even though AI can do a lot of the stuff, if you don't have, it's really hard to have somebody who knows all parts of marketing. You have somebody who might be really, really good at social media. That doesn't mean they're going to be good at writing long form articles. That's a whole different ballgame. And paid ads is highly technical. And somebody who's really creative with graphic design is not going to do great in the paid ad side. It's very, very technical. So really what we recommend is, if you want somebody in-house, have them focus on the pieces that they're really good at, and that they manage well, and that's often their passion. And then find an agency who can, as we call it, fill in the holes, where they're going to come in and work with who you've got, not replace them, but work with them to take care of the pieces that person's not as qualified for.
Yeah. And I think if your organization is larger, you can have somebody who sits at that strategic level, or who has the capability to have that oversight. But as a leader or as a board, or if you're in the finance department, you should start seeing a variation in what gets charged to whom, right? You should see your marketing department outsourced to more specialist parties than maybe before, because where things are going requires more in that specialty.
Absolutely.
Talking back about, or going back to what you said about some of the symptoms, right, of where you see things are not working. So when your marketing is effectively not working, what I'm seeing is the development of the tools is very much in the outbound volume.
Mm-hmm.
What about the feedback loop? Is there also is that lagging then, or is there also development in how then that creates a feedback loop to what clients and customers say about businesses and how that gets back into the world? Because it feels like a decade, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm aging myself, maybe there was suddenly this hump, right, in which feedback on performance and reviews and stuff, everything was online. And so if businesses were not doing well, it didn't matter actually much whether you were in B2B or in anything else, the dirty laundry was out there if somebody was unhappy. And to me, from where I sit, I don't see that part move up with or move up in volume the same way I see the outbound marketing and messaging from businesses growing, mushrooming with AI. Do you see anything else or differently happening in that feedback loop to kind of see what the market says about you, but also how some of this messaging lands, how it's effective or not?
I think we could probably talk about this for a couple hours, to be honest. So let me try to back up and give you a really high level answer. So I believe that AI can be effective for getting customer feedback. And we do see very often that clients think of marketing as exclusively an outbound thing, just trying to get clients in the door. And then once they become clients, that marketing falls away. And so we really encourage a next level of marketing. And we call it, internal marketing. You're marketing to your clients, or client marketing. And there are some really powerful things that AI can be used for that, to automate some of that, asking your clients for that feedback before they go put it out everywhere. Like, you want to know about that dirty laundry so you can get it cleaned before somebody airs it for everybody. So, but that is often, I think, one of the weakest areas in companies is they don't keep marketing to their clients. They don't keep, looking for opportunities to upsell that client, not just for the upsell, but because it matters to the client, because it's going to bring value to the client. And when you're looking at, okay, now they're our client, how do I keep them as a happy client? How do I keep providing value to them so that they want to stick around? They want to buy another widget. They want to, re-up our services for next month. But AI can help automate a lot of that stuff. I've seen a couple companies do some really fun stuff where they use AI agents and they actually build out an agent that mimics one of their clients. And so if they have 2 or 3 different ideal clients, they might build out agents and they can train these agents on the clients. And couple of them, they've actually given AI or told the AI to go pull from these clients' social media accounts and really build out a profile, and then use that to kind of test out some of their new campaigns. How is this going to resonate with our client? And how is this going to land? Is this messaging going to resonate with our clients, or are our clients going to be like, what the heck? So they can actually test things out before they launch them. And the use cases I've seen on that is pretty phenomenal. The increased amounts of form fills and leads and quality leads has really skyrocketed when people are investing the time to do that. And I've even heard of, I haven't seen a use case on this yet, but I even heard that there was one company that used these AI agents that they gave them names, and they were like basically digital versions of their clients. But they would actually feed their client correspondence into and through these agents and use those agents to actually give them a heads up when the client content was starting to shift toward a negative place that maybe account manager might miss. and kind of use it as an early warning system that this client's unhappy about something. I don't know if that one's great or not yet. Like I said, I haven't seen any
I'm
material
all
on
in
that
favor of things like that. You know, if there's some control on how you send that out, right? Because what I see and what I have seen is yes, I agree with you that the investment in that relationship management, which is existing, is typically underinvested. And it seems that the hesitancy around using technology is even bigger there than with new clients, because there's also no relationship yet. So it's kind of like, I have a relationship, I don't want to bother with them, I don't want to have them. But at the same time, you know, we're all individuals and we have our personal style, and the level of self-insight we sometimes have is limited. We don't understand how we come across. We don't understand that we're actually losing a client because simply there's a personality mismatch between our sales guy and their buyer, right? Yeah, and they just find you annoying. And so using AI to find your blind spot or to get a different tone, there is ways to use that technology smartly. And just because you don't like it, just because, you know, people always say, oh, you know, you need to sell yourself this or you need an email list. I'm like, well, I unsubscribe from every email list I get put onto. But it doesn't mean, you know, then I should, if I then choose to not have one because I find them annoying, I should live with the consequences, right? And if I'm operating in a market that is definitely email list based, it's not really. Yeah. But then, you know, that's a choice, right? And I think, our personal displeasure with some of these things that get in the way. Which leads me to my next question, because we talked briefly about social media already and branding, and that's definitely also your space. I see many large organizations where parts of the demographic are really active on social media. And also about work. And so let's just talk, for instance, about something like LinkedIn. Let's not assume we're talking Facebook or Instagram here, because I can imagine as a business leader that's not necessarily where you want to talk about business. But if you're in the B2B space and you have a population that's professionally active and hence posting about work stuff out there, and you as a leader are not in that space and your business is in turmoil, you know, that's probably not the first thing you think of, and you weren't doing it when you were in more steady state space. Can we talk about that and how it matters if there is a big discrepancy between what of the senior staff and what of the maybe more junior crowd does and how they behave in that space?
A lot of it really comes down to getting ahead of the narrative that's out there. And if your company is in crisis of some kind, and especially if it's a crisis that is more public, even if it's in just your community or your city, and if you're in a smaller community, it's going to be out there even more, but your community is probably still on social. And so if you're not out there controlling their narrative, somebody is. And if you don't know who's controlling that narrative, you are potentially in a really dangerous place. And we're basically talking public relations at this point. But if you're in that crisis place and you don't already have a presence on social, at least LinkedIn, if not others, then that's a real danger zone for you, because somebody's going to be talking about it. Somebody's controlling that narrative. And if you try to jump in when you're in crisis, create a LinkedIn profile and start trying to control the narrative, it's already gotten away from you. The boat's pretty much already left the pier. It's going to be really hard because you don't have a presence. You don't have people that follow you. You don't have, you don't have an established authority or established presence on LinkedIn. And so when you suddenly appear in the middle of a crisis, now granted, that's better than nothing, but just know you got a real uphill battle because you don't have enough reach probably or authority to truly control that narrative. So at least having a company LinkedIn account, if you don't have one personally, at least having a company one that you can post and get ahead of the narrative there, I would say is imperative, and probably a better route if you as a leader of your company don't have a LinkedIn profile. It's going to look a little funky if all of a sudden you have one and you're out there trying to, do stuff. But do it on your company page at the very least, because people are going to expect the CEO or leadership to be putting something out on social. And one of the interesting things that we're seeing in the shifts in user behavior with AI is that people are a lot less trustful of websites or even what they're getting on the internet now, because AI can deep fake so much stuff. People are looking to social for more of the real thing, as opposed to websites or what AI is summarizing, because AI hallucinates. It's a pretty word to say that AI lies to us, but, AI is not always correct. And so people are looking for realism on social. They're not looking for overproduced stories, overproduced videos. They're not looking for you to try to put this polished image out there that's perfect. In fact, that is about the worst thing you can do. So if you're trying to get ahead of a narrative, be real, be transparent, and be honest. And just put the truth out there. Obviously, it doesn't have to be all your dirty laundry, but make sure you're being honest and transparent. Videos, even short 15-second videos about what's going on, about the story, those are, and they could just be recorded with your iPhone. That has a realism that people are craving in our very artificial AI, too easy to generate content world right now.
Yeah, and you can, well, what I'm hearing is an overwhelming theme is that all these things have lead time and runway time, right? And if you, and major, lack of consistency therein is just going to hurt you in all of these communications. But the consistency should be at a level that makes sense to you, right? So if you, I would totally appreciate if you're a senior leader in my company and you're, a different generation who didn't used to do this, but you do have an account on LinkedIn, and it's clear that once every 1 or 2 weeks, you at least go on and see what's being posted by other people in the company or in the industry, that you click some likes, and that even if you leave a 2-worded comment on some stuff, or, I'm like, okay, that feels par for the course with whatever else I'm seeing from you, right?
Right.
And that's not a labor intensive. And, we all can get help with all that too, right? What to respond to or what to see. Somebody can surely prep that for you. But then at least you're out there, right? We're not saying everybody needs to be everywhere.
No, but you're right. Consistency is the most important piece, whether you're in crisis or not. And what we always tell people when we're coaching them, when we're coaching CEOs on their personal brand online, whether they're B2B or B2C, is consistency. It has to be consistent. And so even like you said, if that's twice a month, that's okay. So long as it's consistent. Put it on your calendar, block off 30 minutes, have your assistant do some vetting beforehand if you've got somebody that you can trust with that. But even if it's just putting it on your calendar for half an hour, twice a month, to go on and do exactly what you described, post a video, hey, this is what we're doing today, or something, or even comment, like, follow other people, engage. That will put you in a much stronger position, whether you're in an emergency or not. But having to react and respond in an emergency, it's always the most difficult thing. But if you've got that consistency ahead of time, at least that part isn't as much of an uphill battle. It gives you a little bit more mental capacity to deal with the fires that you do have to deal with.
Yeah. And even if you are not very personal in anything you put out there, right? It's pretty, vanilla statements, you're at least not invisible, right? And
Right.
a range up. So talking about visibility, if after listening to this episode and listening to you here, Adrienne, people want to find you, know more about you and your business, where do they go? What do they do?
Well, I am on most of the social media platforms. LinkedIn is my favorite, so I'm probably the most active on LinkedIn. So you can find me under just my name, Adrienne Wilkerson. Our company also is on all the social media platforms, Beacon Media and Marketing. And I do also have a podcast where I talk a lot about marketing challenges and solutions and things like that, which is called the Beacon Way podcast on YouTube and all of those different avenues. But always happy to geek out on marketing. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. Pretty active there. Happy to give away some tips or just even encouragement.
So great. If you are tuned in the car or whatever, as always, we will put all these links also in the show notes. So wherever you picked up this podcast, you can go back later there and find it. Adrienne Wilkerson, Adrienne with a double N, no accents or anything on there. Thank you very much, Adrienne. I'm hearing consistency. I'm hearing make sure you're out there and don't underestimate, right? Don't make this, it might not be the core of your business, but you want to keep the fire glowing because restarting it is really, really, really hard.
Yes, agreed.
And you can hire temporary help to help you do that if you're otherwise occupied for a while, right? So
good point.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for tuning in. I hope you're joining Adrienne and me on the boat of people who believe that marketing does deserve attention, whichever state your business is in, and is an integral part of success. Love to have you listeners back here for our next episode. And again, thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you so much.
One thing I see repeatedly in businesses under pressure is that leaders often focus so heavily on fixing operations internally that they forget the outside world is still watching. Clients, partners, employees, investors, boards, they're all constantly interpreting silence and inconsistency and visibility gaps. And sometimes the narrative around a struggling business starts deteriorating long before the business itself fully does. If your organization is navigating growth, instability, change, or operational pressure, and you need help diagnosing where the real friction sits, well, that's of course exactly the kind of work I do through the Chaos Games Consulting and the Business Emergency Room. That's it for this episode of the Business Emergency Room. If you are currently dealing with chaos or disruption in your business, please reach out. You can email, text, or call, and I will find a way to connect with you within 24 hours. I've helped others steer out of the storm, and I know I can help you too. Talk soon. Please like, subscribe, and share.